So this is a video that I was not expecting to make. I was working on the Apple IIe this morning, trying to find out why a couple of the disk images I was trying yesterday didn't work. I wanted to try some things. It was actually quite successful and was playing around with it for I don't know, 15 minutes or so quite successfully. But then suddenly it decided to stop working. And in particular, what happens now if I turn it on is this. You'll notice there's no beep. That startup beep does not happen, and we get these vertical bars on the screen. Now, I've already checked the power supply, and the power supply is definitely putting out the right voltages. But clearly something else is going wrong. Maybe the processor isn't getting out of reset in the first place, or I'm not quite sure. So I guess I have a repair job on my hands. So this is when we find out whether all that time I've spent watching videos from Jan Bita and Adrian Black and others is going to do any good. So I think the first thing I need to do is to take the case off, open the machine up so that I can get more easily at the board, and then probe around with my oscilloscope to see how the signals are looking. Okay, so the situation now is I've removed all the cards from the machine and I've taken the exterior case off. I don't need to take the keyboard apart or the power supply apart or take the motherboard out. I just want to be able to probe more easily, and it was easier to do that with the case out of the way. So let's just confirm a couple of things. Let's once again, just to be on the safe side, confirm that our power supply voltages are right, because I don't want to be plugging this in if they're wrong. But I did this earlier today, and I am reasonably convinced that it was that everything was all right. And I should say earlier today I also pulled all the cards out to make sure that the behavior I'm seeing is the same when the cards are not in, and it was. So let's just turn that on, and once again check the power supply levels. So this one here is positive 12 volts. This one here, negative 5. This one here is positive 5. It's a little difficult to hold this. And then the last one is negative 12. Okay, so power supply values are correct. So let's put that in. And let's turn on the oscilloscope, which is always a little noisy. I hope it won't, well, we'll just see how that does. I guess one thing I want to check was what I can safely use as a ground point. I'm guessing that these points down at the bottom. Okay, I figured I would save you from watching me faff around trying to find an appropriate place to ground my oscilloscope probe, but I've done that now, so I think we're okay. So what I want to do is to check some levels on the processor. So this is the 6502 here. I've got to remember that it's in it's upside down as far as I am concerned, but that's and actually the pinout I have here is slightly different from the regular pinout. So let's just have a look. So pin 8 I think is the power in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Of course the computer is off, so let's turn it on. And okay, so we've got 5 volts, a good 5 volts coming to the processor. Let's check two things, which are the clock signal and the reset signal. So the reset signal at this point should be low. Oops. No, it should be high. Right. Because reset is active low. So the processor is in a reset state when the when that is low. If I turn the computer off and on again, what we ought to see is that staying low at first and then jumping high. Okay, it's not, I expected it to take longer than that. Coming high very quickly, which is a little suspicious, but okay. Might mean that the processor is not resetting properly. Let's look at the next. So that should be the clock signal. I need to... Okay, I figured out what was going wrong with my with triggering in the scope, and it was foolishly that I was triggering it on channel 2 because that's how it was set up from a previous use I was making. So now if I do this, we can see the clock signal. It's showing it's it's right there at 1 megahertz. That's sort of what we were expecting. So let's check again those data lines just to see what it looks like now. So I said ignore that one, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one is a data. Whoops, this one is a data line. 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 It's a little suspicious that they're all showing basically the same signal. This one, okay, that's slightly different. Also a data line. This one, also a data line. This one, oops, that one. Little ringing on that one, but it's all right. And that one. Okay, that one's not. So the data, nothing is holding any of the data lines high or low. So that's a good sign as well. Maybe what I will do, well, I'll check the address lines, and then I need to figure out which is the chip select line for each of these, for each of the ROM chips, and see if there's one of the ROM chips that's being held active, and what that means. But I was wondering at first whether one of the RAM chips was bad, because that's one of the things that often happens in these computers. There's no immediate sign, I think, that that's happening. There's activity in all of the data lines. None of them, they're all sort of act either at 5 volts or at 0. Nothing sort of like wacky and in the middle, and they all seem to be active. So let's look at the address lines, and then after that I'll try and figure out which the chip select lines are. So coming from this side, again, I need to start at pin, oops, turn that off, start at pin 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's interesting. If it is indeed pin 9, and that's what I'm going to check. What's that one? That one's solidly high because that's the data, the power input. But bit 0, it's not actually. See, there's 5 volts, which is yeah, so it's up there at 2.5 divisions. That counts as a logic 1. But it's holding very steady at 4 volts, which is interesting. And so is that one, and so is that one, and so is that one, and that one's holding steady at 0. That one, that one, that one. Oops. Twelve, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that the the address bus is entirely static. So I suspect that again that the processor is halted. It's just not doing anything. It's not putting out any addresses on the bus. It's not showing a full 5 volts for the logic 1 signals, which is a little surprising, but okay. But I wonder if it's the reset circuit, because I am not seeing the delay that I would expect to see on the delay line. In order to reset, the 6502 needs to be the delay needs the reset to be held in reset for a short period of time. Not normally very long, but it ought to be enough for us to see it just fleetingly for a moment. And I am absolutely not seeing that. I'm seeing it go straight to there might be a tiny delay there. I need to look up how long it would normally be held in reset. Okay, I'm going to have to do a little more research, and when I come back to this next, I'll turn the camera on and we'll see if we can get a little further. Okay, it's the next day, and I'm back to try to do a little more work on this computer. There are 3 sort of things I've got in mind right now. There's just 2 of them I'm going to try out right now. And the first one is that earlier I probed the address lines on the 6502 just to determine whether it was functioning correctly or not. I didn't take a note of what address it was signaling. So I want to do that today. I want to see what address is. There was an address fixed on the address lines, but I don't know what it was. I want to see what that is and then figure out where that is in the memory map, and maybe figure out something about what the computer was trying to talk to at the point where it stops. And then the other thing I wanted to do was to check for hot chips. Any that seem to be, just do the fingertip test and see if anything is running out of spec, and that might be suspicious. So let's start off by turning this on. And once again, it's behaving the same way as yesterday, no beep. And let's just check what's going on the address lines, which will involve some I'm going to have to try to do this partly left-handed, which is a problem. But I know if, let's see, on the chip here there are 4 address lines on this side, so let's get those 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try and go from the top. Oops, oh, that's interesting. Oops, let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's fluctuating. Interesting. That's not just the single value that we saw yesterday. Oh, it's trying to go between multiple different... Okay, so we actually have something happening on the address bus. That's interesting, and also different from yesterday, which was definitely we were seeing it all high and all low. But there is something it's trying to operate. Huh. Okay, that's interesting. Different from yesterday and not what I expected. So I'm gonna have to do a little more thinking about that. But in the meantime, let's just, well, actually, let's do 2 things. Let's look at I was looking at the very high 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the top bit. Oops, not there. There. That's the top bit. A15, A14. A13, A12, A11, A10, A9, A8, A7, A6, A5, A4, A3, A2, A1, and A0. Okay, I actually think I lost track of that there, but I'm going to pull that off the video later just to see what was happening there. But as I said, the other thing I wanted to check was whether there are any chips that are running particularly notably hot. So this computer's been running for a couple of minutes at this point. It's a little warm. I mean, you expect to see some warmth in many of them, but I'm looking for something that might seem to be particularly suspicious, especially in the memory. Let's just see in the memory. I don't really think what I've got is a memory problem, because I think if I had a memory problem, it would manifest itself quite differently. The computer would most likely be able to boot. Although I guess if the stack's not working. There's certainly some warmth in these chips, but not enough to worry about. Ooh, that one is very hot. Huh, interesting. Yes. Yes, that is quite hot. Let me get my stand up because it's easier. I've got a thermometer here. If I'm looking at the 6502, that's at about 90, 89 or 90 Fahrenheit. Today it's about 75 out. What is that chip doing? The one that seems super hot. Oh yeah, that one was up at over 100, 110, 113. These memory chips, yeah, these are more like down at the 90-degree level. But this one, oh, I got a reading of like 116, 120 off that at some point. So that chip is definitely there's something happening with that. So now that's an LS166, and I think, well, let me check the schematic, and then we'll before I speculate too much. Let's see if we can figure out what that chip is doing. Okay, I've been checking the Apple II schematic, the Apple IIe schematic, and as far as I can see, there is only one 74LS166 chip on the board, or there should only be one, and indeed I don't see another one doing a visual inspection. So that's this one here, and that's the chip that was running very hot. And in the diagram, in the schematic, that so the a 74LS166 is a shift register. And so basically it will take 8-bit bytes and shift them out 1 bit at a time, or vice versa. But that's what shifting it out is what this one does. It is connected to the video circuitry, which is otherwise pretty much up here. But you see it's located here right next door to the video ROM. So it's responsible for taking character data from the video ROM and shifting it out bit at a time, so as to be able to program the raster stream. So that's what that is doing. It's fortunately not one of the custom chips. One of the things about the Apple IIe is that it was a cost-reduced effort, and one of the ways that Apple reduced cost is by doing a couple of custom ASICs. And if one of those has gone, then that will be a bigger problem for me. But this one is not. That's just a standard 74 LS logic. Now, one advantage of the fact that it's standard logic is that I can buy replacements. The other thing is that my Mini Pro TLS TL866, which I normally use for programming ROMs, is also a tester, a logic tester for 74 series logic. So I think what I'm going to do is pull that chip out and test it with my with the logic tester and see what that tells me. If that tells me that there's something up with that chip, that would be really useful to know. So this is the dreadful old PC that I break out when I have no choice but to use Windows. This computer spends most of its time reinstalling the operating system because there's always, I turn it on once every 3 months, there's a whole bunch of security patches, and then I use it for 2 minutes. So I've got my, my tester here. Here's the chip that I pulled out of the board. And we'll just set it up, if I can get the cursor to actually move. Okay, 74166, that's right. So let's just test this and see what it tells us. Okay, test result normal, it passed. So that's okay. Well, it would have been nice if the first chip I tried was actually a problem and we could replace it and be done. But it was a suspicious thing because this chip is mainly associated with the video circuitry, and so there wasn't a good reason why it would be causing the problem that I'm seeing. Although certainly it does also drive some things in the slots, and so that might have been a problem. But it's testing out all right. So I'll put it back. It was still, again, suspiciously hot, and so I may replace it. I've got I don't have a part just now, but I'll get one, and so maybe I'll replace it. But it looks like I need to continue to investigate what's going on. Maybe the next thing to do is to check chip enables, especially on the ROMs, and see what it is that the system is trying to access right now. So maybe I'll put this chip back and then we'll get set up to do that. Okay, back again, and I want to test out the, well, actually the chip enable lines on these ROMs are tied to low, so the chips are always enabled. In fact, the computer uses the output enable in order to switch the ROMs on and off. So I want to check the output enable lines, which I think are on pin 22 of each of these two ROMs. So let's just have a quick look at those. Let's turn this on again. And then let's see, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22. That output enable is high, and these output enable lines are, actually I need to go check if these are meant to be active low or active high. Do the same one on this, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22. Okay, that's interesting. 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22. So we have a regular pulse at 1 megahertz, this being turned on and off. So that's the same frequency as the clock frequency of the computer, which is a little surprising. That's more often than any particular instruction not to be doing it, but perhaps that's, yeah, if it's just sort of stuck in here, that would be possible. So okay, not quite sure what to do with that yet. I'm going to have to go and think about it for a little while, but it looks like it's that chip that the system is trying to access. Maybe I'll just reseat both of those ROMs. You know, it's still not long since this computer arrived. It was getting bounced around in the mail or by UPS, who knows. So let's reseat both of those and see if that produces a different effect. Just take a look at it here. Well, you know, it's definitely an old chip, but there's no immediate signs of corrosion or any other problems. I wish I had some contact cleaner to spray into that socket, but I don't. So we will just have to do the best we can. Now I want to make sure, get this back in properly, don't bend any pins, don't try to fix problems, not cause them. How is that? Yeah, that's going to be okay. So now I can just push it in, get it in solidly there. Let's do the same with the, that's the CD-ROM as they call it, and let's do the same with the EF-ROM. They're called CD and EF because those are the parts of memory they control. C1000, D1000, and so forth. CD-ROM always seems like an odd thing to read on the board of a computer from 1983, but of course it doesn't mean what we would think CD-ROM means. Okay, again, that's in reasonable shape. At some point, actually, what I'll try and do perhaps is put that into, maybe I'll just do that anyway. Maybe I will put that into the controller, into the TL866, and just read it out and make sure that I'm successfully managing to read the kind of data I would expect to be able to read out of a ROM. So here we are back with a dreadful PC. Let's try and do something. So these are 2764s, these ROMs. Pin error detected. It does not like that. You know, I'm going to stop and I'm going to do a little more research online before I proceed. Well, I was wrong about the ROM type. They're actually 2365s, 2365As, and the TL866 software doesn't have any support for those. So I might look up the pinout and see if I can make an adapter, because I'm sure they're quite similar to something like a 2764. But in the meantime, let's just put this back. So we wanted to reseat these chips. So let's put on my glasses first, make sure it's the right way around. Again, ensure that I'm got everything lined up straight and I'm not causing more problems than I'm trying to resolve. Check on both sides there. Yep, that's okay. And then get it back in properly. All right, that seems fine. I think it's incredibly unlikely that reseating those has resolved everything, but just because we're going to travel optimistically, let's see. Nope, no change there. Well, that's not really a surprise. Okay, so I still don't know that I am coming out, the chip processor is coming out of reset properly. Although actually, if we really are still getting activity on the address lines, and we are still getting activity on the address lines, then most likely everything is fine. Yeah, I think that's okay. You know what's odd about this? The maximum value is only a little over 3.5, 3.6 volts. It's not, those ones are not getting all the way up to 5 volts. Same here, maximum 3.7. Here, maximum 3.68. This is an NMOS part, and most of what I do is playing around with CMOS, and so maybe that's good. Maybe that's nothing to worry about. Um, but it is interesting. It's interesting. Okay, I am going to do some more thinking and some more reading and see what I can come up with. So I knew there was a reason that I thought the ROMs were 2764s, and here it is. This image is taken from the Apple IIe schematic, and these are the two ROMs, the CE ROM or the CD-ROM and the EF ROM. And you see that they're labeled as 2635s or 2764s. And the 2365, actually 2365A, is the Synertec designator. But in fact, the chip essentially is a rebadged 2764. If you check the pinouts, they're identical. So I don't quite understand why it was that my EF ROM was not recognized by the TL866 as a valid 2764. I did pull the CD-ROM and check it too, if I thought that maybe the EF ROM was bad, and I would be able to convince myself of that by showing that the CD-ROM was good, but the CD-ROM did not check out in the TL866 either. So it may be a problem with the TL866. It might be some other misunderstanding that I have. Now, I've got some 2764s on the way, and I also have copies of the ROM binaries, so I can burn some 2764s that have the right data in them. And insert them onto the motherboard, and that would work. So I may have a go at that and see if the ROMs are a problem, because certainly if the EF ROM was bad, that would manifest itself as pretty much what I'm seeing. However, there's another problem. When I was checking things out today, I was looking more carefully at the data lines, and I started to see a number of instances where the signals on the data lines were not purely at 5 volts or purely at 0, but were somewhere in between, as if something was pulling them up or pulling them down, and showing other signs that were questionable. Now, again, I was still holding the oscilloscope probe in my hand rather than having it attached to the board, and often things are a little weirder when you do that. But nonetheless, these are looking a little suspicious to me. So I'm back to thinking that there might be something that is causing some disturbance to the data bus, and I'm still not entirely convinced about the ROMs. And there are some more chips on the way, and so I will be able to do a little more investigation and keep reading up on the troubleshooting guides and studying the schematic to try to figure out what's going on with this machine.